So yesterday I got a comment on one of my videos from someone who said Bryan Bulaga is a free agent. So this had me getting my gears going, starting to think about this potential situation. Should the Packers sign Bryan Bulaga? So Bryan Bulaga, who was here in Green Bay for a very long time, drafted in the first round in 2010, the year the Packers come in after they draft him, win the Super Bowl. And then he plays in Green Bay from 2010 to 2019 and was a very, very productive player while he was here in Green Bay. The Packers then decide to not give him a new contract. The Chargers come in and sign him to a 3-year, $30 million contract where he's played the past 2 seasons. Unfortunately for him, he has dealt with lots of different injuries. He only played in 10 games in 2020, and then last year he injured his back in week 1 and never played the rest of the season. So this offseason, the Chargers decide to come in, and they decide to release him a few months ago, back in March. They release him, which saved them around $10 million on their salary cap. So right now, currently, Bryan Bulaga is a free agent. So I think when we look at the Packers' offensive line, as I've touched on for a while these past few months, there are injury concerns. We have David Bakhtiari, where we don't know exactly when he's going to return. He could be fine. He could be completely fine and healthy right now. We're just not going to know unless he comes in and starts playing immediately at training camp. If he doesn't come in training camp and play immediately, that's where I'm going to be a little bit concerned, just because it's been so long since he injured himself initially, maybe like 18 or 19 months now. And so if he doesn't come in and start playing immediately in training camp, I'm going to be a little concerned there. And then we have Elgton Jenkins, who also suffered his ACL tear, who should be back sometime during the season, but we never know with these ACL tears. So outside of those 2 guys, there are some, I'd say, depth concerns if those players aren't going to be able to play. They should be, but in the scenario that they're not able to come in and play exactly when the Packers need them to, I think a signing like Bryan Bulaga could make sense, because when you look at a few certain factors right now, is there a risk here? Yes. He's 33 years old now, which is a little bit up there in age. He's had 2 years of injury-riddled seasons, so there are some concerns of, can he get back to his former self, or is he, too old? Is he not going to be able to play once again, and he's going to, could he come in and get injured once again? And I think that, could it happen? Yes, it definitely could happen. But when we have these scenarios and these factors, I think it allows the Packers to come in and maybe sign him to a very cheap contract because of the worries and the concerns. And just considering he already was here in Green Bay from 2010 to 2019, he has a Super Bowl under his belt. He's a strong veteran presence. And so if the Packers came in, maybe gave him a super cheap contract to bring him back to Green Bay, if Bakhtiari is still struggling with his injury, which we don't know if he's going to, maybe he's completely fine. And if he's completely fine, I don't think this signing makes as much sense, but this is just a potential scenario. So if Bakhtiari were not to be ready, I think you could bring in a player in Bryan Bulaga, who played lots of snaps at right tackle for the Packers in his years here. In his final year in Green Bay, he was very productive, which you can obviously see with the Chargers deciding to come in and give him a $30 million 3-year contract. So he's probably not worth that much anymore, considering the injuries I already mentioned and him missing the past couple of years and the age he is now. But you could give him a cheap contract and hope that he can come in and give you some snaps if you need some, because even if Bakhtiari comes in healthy and Elgton Jenkins comes in ready, there are still some, you never know what's going to happen in the season. You don't know which players are going to get injured. We still have Josh Nijman, who I think can play, snaps at right or left tackle, wherever the Packers could need him. But, it couldn't hurt to have one more piece just in case something happens. You have a player who's a veteran presence, who has a Super Bowl ring, who brings that back to you in Green Bay. So I honestly, just thinking yesterday about it, thinking about the potential scenario with where Bryan Bulaga is at right now, I honestly think it could make sense for the Packers. Of course, if you are the Packers and Brian Gutekunst, you have more knowledge than all of us fans have about how Bakhtiari is doing with his injury, how Elgton Jenkins is doing with his injury. And if both of those players are going to be fine, sometime soon in the future, I don't think this move would make just as much sense. But if there is a part of the Packers front office thinking, shoot, like Bakhtiari, maybe he's not going to be back to his former self, then I think at that point you think about signing some kind of free agent offensive lineman who you think could come in and, get the job done. Maybe the Packers have looked at Bryan Bulaga, maybe they haven't, maybe they're completely fine with the depth they have on the offensive line, because we do have lots of pieces on this O-line from the draft, as we've mentioned time and time again. The thing is, I think a veteran presence always makes a lot of sense. Like last year, bringing in Dennis Kelly, who played lots of crucial snaps on the offensive line when the Packers were struggling and dealing with injuries. And so I think Bryan Bulaga, just because he was already here in Green Bay, it's sort of a nice, why not come back home to Green Bay, give him a cheap contract. I bet you Aaron Rodgers would like that. I don't exactly know. Maybe he would. But it's just an interesting thought to think about. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys have yet to subscribe, feel free to subscribe. I put out Packers content pretty much every single day. So stay tuned, drop a like on the video, and I'll see you guys next time.